womb alchemist and creatress at Radiant Moon Medicine, a healing center dedicated to women and womb transformation based in San Francisco, California. Today I'm going to do a short video on giving some information of the pelvic anatomy so that you can better understand your anatomy, and I hope that this inspires you and empowers you to seek out different modalities to support you and your pelvic health. So if you were to look down into the pelvic cavity, like a helicopter view, you would see this layout. You've got the bladder, the uterus, the large intestine, elimination zone. You can see the ovaries here, the fallopian tubes, and some of the main ligaments I'm going to talk about are the round ligament, the broad ligament, the cardinal ligament. I'll show you better diagrams of those. The uterus hangs in the pelvis, kind of like a hammock. It's a very mobile, flexible, and resilient organ. And it is mobile and flexible and resilient because we menstruate and we make, grow babies. This is one of my favorite anatomical pictures of the uterus at full term. So this is 40 weeks pregnant. You can see the ligaments really well here. Here is the sacrouteral ligament. It attaches to the sacrum. Here is the round ligament. You can see it's almost 6 times its normal size. So it's very resilient. It's very strong and it can stretch. And just this image is really such a symbol of women and the power of the womb, that we can grow and create and stretch to hold an entire world in our pelvic cavity. So I love this image. The ligaments themselves attach to the tissue around the bone. So these ligaments, for instance, the round ligaments, attach into the pelvic bones. So the reason for a lot of malposition, which is very normal, is because the pelvis is always a little bit out of alignment. Most often women and men have their pelvis a little bit off kilter, so maybe a little bit tilted forward. For instance, maybe that right hip is a little forward and anterior, so the uterus tends to follow the position of the hips and the pelvis. Here's a really simple diagram of the uterus and all the attaching ligaments. You can see here the uterus, the top of the uterus, the fundus, the opening of the uterus, the cervix. This is the vaginal canal. And you've got these main ligaments that hold the uterus in place. Starting with the round ligament attaching to the top of the uterus into the ilium. The cardinal ligaments attach into the cervix. Now these ligaments are some of the more strong and sturdy ligaments. They hold the cervix in place. So if your cervix is a little bit out of alignment, most likely the cardinal ligaments have weakened, and it's important to bring back the strength of the ligaments through massage, through regular care, pelvic care, massage, yoni eggs, pelvic floor exercises, etc. You can see here the ovaries. This is a follicle growing in the ovary. Here is the proper ligament of the ovary. It attaches into the top of the uterus. And the suspensory ligament of the ovary that actually attaches to the spinous process is at about L3 or 4, probably L3. And then you've got your fallopian tubes, these beautiful little waving arms, the fembrae of the fallopian tubes that actually kind of lure the egg into the fallopian tube. And this is where fertilization occurs. This is sperm heaven, the fallopian tube. This is where the sperm can survive for a good 3 to 5 days, waiting for that healthy egg to meet the egg and fertilize the egg. And then the egg travels down into the uterus and plants itself into the endometrium lining, which, if you are at your fertile time, should be healthy. It should be very full of nutrient-rich blood, and it should be pretty thick because your estradiol at that point should have risen and peaked. That's a cool diagram. So naturally, you can see here, this is a side view, the uterus sits right in between the bladder and the colon, the rectum. You can see that there. And the cervix is perfectly aligned with the vaginal canal. So if you were to feel your cervix, you would just insert your fingers gently and you would feel kind of like a tissue, little circular tissue. That's your cervix. Around ovulation time, the cervix is kind of soft and pillowy like the lips. And around menstruation time or before you menstruate, it should be firm, kind of like the tip of your nose. Now, because the uterus is mobile and flexible, it moves. So these are some of the main positions that I often see when women come into my office. Most often, I see a uterus leaning to the right or to the left, and that has a lot to do with the pelvic alignment. And a uterus that is anteflexed, which kind of folds over on itself. And often what I find is the uterus is anteverted, meaning kind of leaning forward on the bladder. But in an anteflexed position, the uterus can in fact lean backward, forward, or right or left. And then retroflexion is kind of the opposite. The uterus kind of folds back on itself, but the cervix is still aligned with the vaginal canal. And again, in this position, the uterus can lean forward, back, right, or left. And then retroversion, which is a little bit more complicated because the uterus, in fact, leans back. So the cervix, in a severe retroverted tilt, will often point upward. You can kind of see that there. But there are varying degrees of retroversion. And depending on how severe it is, kind of makes the difference in time for it to heal. And then retrocession is kind of the beginnings of prolapse. The uterus begins to descend low into the vaginal canal. And this has to do with the weakening of the ligaments or the atrophy of the vaginal walls, oftentimes when we are entering that state of menopause. This is an amazing image of the blood flow to the pelvic organs. You can see these branches of arterial blood branching off into the organ systems. Each organ has their very own blood supply. You can see these tiny arteries and veins here that feed into the uterus. The fallopian tubes have their very own blood supply, and the ovaries have their very own blood supply. I love visualizing fresh blood and nutrients feeding into my pelvis when I am doing hands-on work on myself or meditating, bringing that healthy flow of blood and chi to the pelvis. Brings back life and replenishes the pelvic area. I highly recommend to look for a practitioner who utilizes the Arvigo techniques. The Arvigo techniques are now available all around the world. There are practitioners certified through the Arvigo Institute. Rosita Arvigo was really one of the first to embody the abdominal therapy as a form of healing in the West, and I feel like we can give great thanks for her for making the abdominal therapy something that is widely recommended by healthcare professionals. I work with many healthcare professionals in the Bay, and this work is a wonderful integration with medical care and assisted reproductive technologies specifically for fertility. There are different forms of abdominal massage at this point in time, so you can kind of do your own research on that. There's many traditional healers that still practice the abdominal massage, specifically midwives, in different cultures around the world, such as China, Korea, and Central America. And each tradition has its own unique touch. The Arvigo techniques are really a wonderful way to connect with your body, and I very much value the work that Rosita has done in the tradition of bringing this medicine back in this time that we very much need it. So traditional healing is the people's medicine, and I find this work to be very much also women's medicine. You find that it's very familiar as you start massaging your belly and connecting with your womb, that this is something we are supposed to do. So there's a little bit about uterus anatomy and bringing your womb back into alignment with different techniques, massage, and I hope you found that helpful. Please comment below if you have any questions. I'm going to be doing more videos as I go along in 2017, and I would love to hear your comments and questions below. You can visit my website, radiantmoonmedicine.com, and learn more about me and the work that I offer in San Francisco, California. Wishing you a beautiful day. Bye.